right, I failed to do this on the first panel. Sorry, Nick. So, panelists. Our panelists today are Paul Breuler, Jaryd Krishnan, and Katie Kuebler-Wilson. If you guys could come up to the stage and introduce yourselves as the first question, maybe, that would be great. Let's give our panelists a warm welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Paul, I don't think we've met. Maybe we have. Todd.
Perhaps.
And Jaryd, and now I'm just drawing a blank on Katie's name. Old friends mentoring at EDA. And so I want to give you a heads up on the first question. I'm going to ask you, in your career, how did you name a way you've had to level up? Maybe you didn't expect it, or it was difficult for you. And I want to tie this together. First, we're going to start with the first presentation by Jess. As a manager, that basically is just gold truth. I've spent a few years trying to implement some of these servant leadership type stuff, and everything in her presentation is spot on. I reference that Google study all the time when leading teams, and the magic is that it's true. If we invest in psychological safety, if we support each other, the work gets done. And so that was her presentation. The next group kind of focused on the team. How does a healthy team use that technology and creativity to make a product? And so it was like healthy team, healthy product. Our panel is not going to move in to the individual. In a career, how do we participate in a healthy team, why it's important, and how do we not go insane while trying to do it? And I actually did go insane, which is why I'm up here today, because I've had to do a lot of self-work to become uninsane. And so here we go. I'll start with Katie on the end. Introduce yourself, and then tell us a way you've had to level up.
Yeah, so I'm Katie Wilson Kuebler. I'm a technical architect at Perficient. I've been there 6 years. And a way that I've semi-recently leveled up in my career is I have a tendency to say yes a lot. So I was asked to help with our new hire program. It started with just, kind of attending a few meetings. And we do cohorts, kind of like EDA, where every few months we hire new devs and run a cohort. And my first one, I was just in a few meetings. My second one, I ended up running the whole thing. The people who were also running it with me got a little busy, and I still had to be there at a few meetings. And by like the second, third day, I realized no one else was really there anymore. So I, took charge and just tried. I checked in with the people who I needed to, but I think that's how I level up a lot. Is I say yes and then I try, and that's all I can really do.
I love that. That's definitely a way to level up, right? Without a doubt. Hey everybody, my name's Jaryd. I'm aware that little Battler website just crashed almost immediately once like 30 or 40 people visited it at the same time. Anyway, so yeah, I'm tempted to make that my level up story, but that's my name's Jaryd. I work as an engineering lead at John Deere, and so I work on a product called Harvest Profit. And my level up story, to kind of tie into it, was Harvest Profit was acquired by Deere in November of 2020. Prior to its acquisition, Harvest Profit was a team of 7. So we had 7 people, small startup, kind of close knit. Didn't really have a lot of meetings, maybe 1 meeting a week. Not really chatting with a lot of people, just kind of heads down doing the work, and then maybe being with customers and have a lot of direct interaction. And now I work at Deere, so we went from a team of 7 to a team of 70,000. My calendar fills up way more. People book meetings on it that I don't know, and it's so different and so strange, and it was especially. And that was a way I kind of had to level up and bring kind of almost a more organized self. I'm addicted to my calendar. I have to manage it. If I don't, it gets out of my control. That was not something I experienced before. So that's my leveling up story.
All right, I've got a wild life story, but I'll narrow it very narrow. So I'm Paul Breuler, the CTPO of Thread. My level up story would be in the past 2 years, I was prior to that, I built a multi-million-dollar business at Microsoft, representing about 1% of Microsoft Business Applications domain revenue, which if you know how much money Microsoft makes, it's a lot of money. 1% of a lot is a lot. And it's a lot of responsibility, and Microsoft started laying people off left, right, center, and my entire team got moved overseas, and I didn't want to manage people overseas. So I decided, hey, I've been building businesses for other people for my entire career. My career is around ALM, Automated Lifecycle Management, DevOps, all over the world, kind of writing books, building services. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Had a friend call me, and he's like, hey, my co-founder passed away recently. He's an older gentleman, built some robotics and pallet storage, and I was like, you know, I could do this. I've done a lot of video game development, a lot of AI pathing. I was like, I'll give it a shot. Spent 3 months, built the algorithm, and then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna jump all in. So sold some shares at Microsoft, started my own business, self-funded, asked some people for money. Everybody said I was crazy. And I worked 90 hours a week, probably more, traveled all over the world, getting steel from China, shipping through Malaysia, across the oceans, dealing with people in all over the place with warehouses. I learned way more than I ever wanted to know in that year, and there's no preparation for that. Like, there's no level up. Is just like, go Super Saiyan, I suppose. Like, I don't know how you just don't stop. You just stay there all the time. And we did $60 million in business 2 years, and I sold, and I was told I wasn't allowed to retire. So if you're at Startup Brew yesterday morning, you'll have heard the rest of that story. But here I am now. I have leveled it down because being a founder is the greatest and the absolute most miserable experience of your life, all at once. If you ever see the meme of happy in the morning and like dead and crying in the corner at night, then you'll know. It's right.
Wow, that's awesome. Thanks, guys. I want to start kind of from a EDA student perspective. Many of us here are graduates, not me, but some of us mentor. And so from that mindset, I just want to start with the elephant in the room. How do we get over imposter syndrome? It already came up. Mike Barrett and I were chatting this morning. It always comes up. I've been in a dev for over 15 or so years. It still comes up. But it needs to be managed because it really is an invented monster that can really slow you down. And so in our career, leveling up, making that progress in the journey is learning to overcome it. And I'll offer one tidbit. The way that I got over it was to just start helping other devs. If there's something you can help someone with, help them. Because when you're doing that, there's no imposter to be, to have a syndrome. You're too busy helping somebody else. And so that's the first thing I reach for, is when I'm nervous or anxious in my day-to-day, I just see what else can I do. I'll start on that side. Katie, how did you get over imposter syndrome?
I don't think you ever truly get over imposter syndrome. I think it's very cyclical. Personally, I think there are times where I feel like I'm doing really well with it and I'm very confident in what I'm capable of, and then literally the next week I'm like, what am I doing with my life? So I think it's very cyclical, but what I do is when I'm feeling like I don't know what I'm doing is two things. One, I look for help. I reach out, and I reach out quickly. And then two is I break things down as small as I can. So if I see this huge task in front of me, that is often what causes that imposter syndrome, is because it's too insurmountable. But if I can take a step, and then another step, and then suddenly I'm climbing this mountain.
I absolutely love that. I think I'll double down on that point in a great way. I think that imposter syndrome, at least for me, I still feel like an imposter every day. My background is in finance. I actually never studied software engineering or went to something like the EDA. I fell into my software engineering role inadvertently. And I've continued to do it, and now a big company pays me to do software engineering, and I still don't know what I'm doing. But I feel like I've got everybody fooled pretty well. So, but when it comes to imposter syndrome, a chunk of it is also confidence in your own skills. I found that as long as I'm willing to learn with others, that's something that's helped me personally overcome imposter syndrome. Just kind of being curious and continually asking questions. Asking for help is another great example. It's just something that It lets you get over that, once you realize nobody else knows what they're doing, then maybe that there's like a it's all together. All of us don't know what we're doing, and we're just kind of working together to solve really hard problems. Yeah.
Those are both great points. I would say in my adult life, I don't think I've felt an imposter, because early in my life I was homeless. So not the fun, fancy sleeping on my couches or my friends kind, the riding on the back of trains across the country, going different places kind of thing, feeling an imposter every day. Knowing, I suppose, that journey I went through kind of gave me a superpower to not feel that. What I feel, though, is when people say you can't, you won't, that's a bad idea. I was listening to a Simon Sinek podcast this morning, and somebody said it really well. He said, instead of looking at it as I can't, I look at it as how come they can't see this? Why aren't they seeing what I'm seeing? How can I make them see this? And just working through that. So when somebody says I can't or you won't, to me, it puts a fire under my backside, and I try harder. I'm a person who, if you push, then I just push back harder and harder and harder until I win. Because competitiveness is my nature.
And I'll quickly open it up. Any questions or comments on imposter syndrome from many of our experts or newbies out there? Okay, we'll move ahead. Thank you, everybody. Like Jaryd said, imposter syndrome can be a daily thing 20 years in. And so accept it. Some of us aren't getting over it. And so work with it. Love yourself, love your teammates. It's just part of the deal. A theme I've been picking up on today, I think Langston brought it up, was grandma energy. And this is something we talk about at where I work, is a good team player is moving more and more towards grandma energy. And what is grandma energy? It's basically bullet 2 from Jess's student slide, which is destroying your ego. No easy task, but that's the work. And the reason we move towards grandma energy is very much in the way I mentioned getting over imposter syndrome. It's just you become part of this team and you stop thinking of yourself as an individual, but it's like, what does the flock of birds need? And then you're able to move into it to lift the team up. You're not so worried about your career, your promotion, your demotion, whatever. And so I wanted to give the panel some time to talk about, do you have any grandma-type quotes to live your day by that maybe aren't technical, but are just wonderfully true?
I suppose I could start. So I don't have a quote, but I have a workshop that we did at Microsoft. It's called Massively Open Online Course. And one of the first things the
Paul, say that again, sorry.
Massively Open Online Course. They have other friendly names for it inside Microsoft, but I can't remember. There's acronym soup inside Microsoft. But I cornered one of the speakers in there because he'd said something. He said, what is your philosophy in life? And he gave everybody like 15 minutes to figure it out. And I walked up to him and I was like, I don't know what the hell my philosophy is. And he's like, pick 3 words that resonate with you. And I was like, okay. And he's like, okay, now we're going to stand at this whiteboard. And he actually did this with me. He's like, so let's stand here and let's like write those 3 words down and do this with me. And I said, okay. So I started writing things down. I said, courage, humble. And then he's like, okay, well, you got 2. He's like, riff on that. And I said, okay, so my philosophy is that I want to be courageous in the adventure of life, but humble in the acceptance of that which I receive. And I think that is what helps me figure that out. I operate in what I call modalities, and that is, the grandma modality, I suppose, is one way to put it, is we talk to different people in different ways for different outcomes. And certainly team building, one of those is leave your ego at the door. I have a very big ego. If you know me personally, it could fill a room and you would not be able to pop it without trying really hard. But I have to park that, and I have to park it very hard because it doesn't go over well with people, and it doesn't help teams come together. And we're definitely going through this right now in my newest position. We've had some changes recently, so I've had to bring the team together. We did a hackathon, and not a hackathon and, oh my gosh, you all need to work to grind to dust. I said, what we're going to do is we're going to build camaraderie. The spirit of a hackathon is to come together and do something as a team and to build that rapport and do it in a way that is fun and energizing. And I think that is a little bit more than what you asked, but that's kind of how I think about it.
Absolutely love that. I don't know. But what was the saying again? Sorry, that was really
my personal philosophy.
Yeah.
To be courageous in the adventure of life, but to be humble in the acceptance of, or to be humble in the acceptance of that which I receive.
I love that. I don't know. I really enjoy that. Thank you. Anyway, yeah, super fascinating. Mine's not in the same vein. Mine's more of a grandma style phrase, but it comes when I'm always like feeling like kind of stressed from whether it's a deadline coming up or I'm missing something or totally screw up. And where it comes from in my personal life is I used to. Now I would say a very natural public speaker in the sense that I don't mind it and I don't have any real fear of sitting up in front of you and talking. But when I was much younger, it was a total terror of mine. And I was a former banker. I used to work at the U.S. Bank here downtown, and there was a banking conference, and I spoke at it, and I just bombed. It was like bad. Like, at least I thought it was bad, right? But now looking back on it, and I've got this mantra that whenever I'm feeling like a really high level of stress, it's one of those things. This too shall pass. It's a real simple, like, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling completely blown, you're just too much going on, too much stimulation, this too shall pass, right? Tomorrow's going to come, the next day's going to come, the next opportunity's going to come along, something great will happen, this too shall pass. And now I'm not afraid of public speaking, so, there's that, so, yeah.
I think mine is, so I just kind of go back, and I remember when I was starting my career, I was still in college, my brother was actually just graduating, and I remember my dad just like sitting us down and talking to us about like, hey, you guys are gonna start your careers, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you guys are gaining these technical skills, but be someone people want to work with. And I think that gets you a lot further than your technical skills even. Being someone that is open to receiving criticism and growth, because if you are someone that people want to work with, they'll help you. And that help is really what gets you a lot further.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Yeah, and I can attest, Katie is someone that is fun to work with on our mentor groups. And Jaryd, you're a great public speaker. And Paul, you have an amazing life.
Sometimes.
I had read your LinkedIn, but filling in the gaps, it's so fascinating. I want to dig into actual nuts and bolts for folks today. As a hiring manager, one of the first things I look at is your Git repo, and I want to see a lot of green on that activity. That shows me that you like to code, and I don't have to teach that aspect of it. And so it's a daily habit, right? You code one day, you get to put an X on that calendar. You code the next day, you get to put an X. Pretty soon you have 10 days lined up working on your little side projects or learning a new language, just a Hello World app. And for me, one thing that I advise is every day, even if it's 5 minutes, push some code, because those little sessions turn into big sessions where all of a sudden you're making a do nap at 2:30 in the morning because it's so fun. And so my panelists, I ask you, what are those daily habits that maybe you wish you would have instilled sooner, or you want to advise people coming up so that they can further their career?
Jaryd, you go.
Oh,
Let
you
you
want me
start
to-
first.
Yeah, so I think a daily habit that I have is always trying to, and this is something that's more come from me is now that I'm in a more management style role, something that wasn't necessarily an opportunity to me when I was in a more junior style role, but that is to try to level up somebody around me every day, right? Unblock them or try to spend some time thinking about what they might be able to grow and do. And I find that when I spend time, whether it's pairing with a junior software engineer or having a one-on-one with one of my direct reports, or mentoring at the EDA, or just hitting up people on Slack at the EDA and talking to the students or talking to the alumni or grabbing coffee. These are things that give me a lot of energy, and they make me want to contribute more, right? It's something that, it lets me, that's the thing that unlocks my productivity in a way. Whether it's, if I'm pairing on a project, well, then I know I'm committing. Then I know I get that green little dot next to on my GitHub profile, right? Because I'm pairing with somebody, and there is a way to share commits. You can totally do this. You can commit with another person, and that makes it so much fun. And it makes you build really incredible things. Whether it's up to 2:30 coding with Blaine. I don't think we shared any commits, but I think we just alternated. I'm pretty sure. But yeah.
All right, one thing I wish I had started earlier. I did start pretty early in teaching others. I was in this group in college of a bunch of friends. We played League of Legends together, And they wasted way too much time playing it, and we were getting ready for an exam for electrical engineering, and I walked up to the whiteboard. We'd always take over a room, and we'd be like, oh, we're going to study, and everybody would just start playing League of Legends. So I walked up to the board, and I was the person that was catching up the most, right? Coming out of high school, I had like terrible grades, and I was figuring stuff out, trying to learn how to learn. So I walked to the board, and I was like, you know what, guys? I'm going to write this down. You tell me when I screw up, and then you can all laugh at me. So I just started doing that. I started writing down the questions and screwing up, and they would all laugh, of course, and they'd come off League of Legends, and they're like, Paul, you don't know what you're doing. God, how could you possibly get that wrong? I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Just keep doing it. And I've carried that forward is do something that I'm uncomfortable with to get myself comfortable with that. And in that case, it was teaching, and guess who got the highest grade in the class on the electrical engineering exam? This guy, because I got told I was a doofus like 5,000 times before the exam, and I learned a lot from it, so.
I think mine might be a little counterintuitive is taking breaks. I used to just like push and push and push and push through and be like, I can just get this working if I keep working, it'll work. But I find when I sleep or when I, grab a cup of coffee or go for a walk, suddenly I come back and I'm like, oh, it's working now. So something I try and do is when I'm getting really frustrated is I force myself to step back. Not for a long time, but just for a little bit, and that's something I try and do daily is just to remind myself, hey, take a break. Take a break, and it'll go easier usually. Not always.
I'm trying to think about the best way to phrase this, but we're talking about forward progress. And in my career, certainly you hit plateaus where you think you're worthy of a promotion, but there's no job available. Or you're worthy of a salary increase, but the money's not there. And so that lens, once you're done trying to push, you kind of turn it on yourself because, well, you're plateaued. What are you going to do? Are you going to stagnate and spin your wheels? Or are you going to stay patient and stay positive and wait for things to work out? It's a really blurry concept when we're talking about grandma energy and things like that. But how do you guys keep the faith that your career is moving up, even though it might feel like it's kind of going over here?
I can talk to this a little bit. So semi-recently, I had a baby, right? And everyone knows when you have a baby, you take time off work. And basically around the same time that I got pregnant, I was kind of up for a promotion, or like a potential promotion. But obviously this is like a very busy time for me in my life. And I also had a very rough pregnancy. I was very sick. And it was hard to, they can't, obviously, like by law, they can't do anything because they're pregnant, right? But still, it's just a lot to like take in and take forward. And it was something that I had to take a step, take a break, and realize like, yeah, my child's more important, one, my health is more important, two, and know that hopefully this would still be there when I came back from maternity leave. And it was, but it's, taking those breaks is hard. The idea of like getting pregnant and being out of work for like 3 months is hard. It's weird. And I know there's a lot of men in this room, so it might not apply to everyone, but it is something that's hard to like see in your future of like taking that break and holding fast to what you think is like best for your future holistically, and keeping going in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about, for myself, getting stuck or feeling like there's not progress. I think about my time working in the financial world. I worked as a banker on the retail side and ag lending, and then business lending. And obviously I'm not a banker now, and so what my path, I did feel stuck, in the financial industry. For for myself. And so, I tried swapping over from the banking side to the insurance side. So there's different parts of the financial world, right? They focus on different things. And that still wasn't something that I found engaging. I didn't feel that I was growing. I felt that I was pushing papers around and selling people products that were abusing them in different capacities. And it wasn't particularly engaging. It wasn't something that made me feel good. And so for me, it was hitting the reset button in a loose sense. I decided, well, these big companies with large, they have large financial arms. Those are the ones that we serve. Why don't I try going and working at a startup? And so I went to go work for a company called Dog IDs in West Fargo, and that was a blast. It was an adventure. It was a crazy adventure. Would I do it again? There are things I do differently, but it was an absolute blast. And that hitting that reset and basically almost taking a break in a loose sense from what I was currently doing and trying something new, trying something completely different, I found to be very re-energizing. And now it is my career. So I think there's something to that as well. Yeah.
All right, I love this topic because it puts a fire under me. I had a great career at Microsoft, and I had a conversation, more of an argument, with a very senior colleague of mine about promotions. And he said to me, he goes, you've been promoted faster than anyone I've ever seen at Microsoft. I'm like, yeah, that's great, but I know I'm there already. I've demonstrated I'm there already. And he says to me, well, sometimes it's not about being ready. Sometimes it's about time and role for experience. And about flipped a desk. I was pissed. I told him as much, hung up the phone and walked away. I don't believe in any of that crap. I don't believe that. I actually met someone great at Microsoft, Charles Lamana, who said, when we would do promotions, we just look at you, and like every 6 months, it's like, if you need a promotion, I'm just going to promote you. It's like, why would I ever stall your career? That's ridiculous. Why would I ever do that? And so, whenever I felt stalled, I weighed the risk. And I'm a person with a high risk tolerance, but I also do it with a lot of calculation. I felt one day in my role early at Microsoft that I wasn't getting what I needed, so I volunteered to speak at conferences about stakeholder management. How do you deal with your customers? And I was in support in a leadership program at Microsoft, so the opportunity fell in my lap. I spoke there and had an opportunity to then talk to somebody who would be my future manager. And when I was ready to flip a desk, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna reach out to my network and see what happens. And that's what happened. Anytime I felt there was a wall, I just reached out. I said, I'm here. I've done these things. I've landed this, X, Y, Z. I know I'm ready, but someone's telling me, and it was always at Microsoft, you need more time and roll. You need more time and roll. I was like, that is such a corporate BS thing to say. And so I got to the end of my career at Microsoft, and I was doing phenomenal. Could have just coasted off into the sunset and been done. I was like, I need more. There's a glass ceiling, and I'm going to shatter this thing. So I quit, and that's the risk. I gave up everything. I just bought a house, not a small house. I bought a massive house with my Microsoft money. And I quit my job, and I was like, you know what? This is how I get a fire under myself. I'm like, I'm gonna do something really stupid that incentivizes me to do what I need to do. So I bought this ridiculous house. Gorgeous, right? I'm like, it's great. I can't afford it now. So how do I do it? Start a business. How do I make that go faster? Well, apply all the skills you have. And then go find the next glass ceiling and smash it. I don't recommend any of you do that. I don't recommend it. I've been very fortunate in the decisions I've made in my life, but certainly I think it could lead into a very different outcome for most people. So don't take that one as a learning. But certainly the takeaway is, when you feel you're stuck, there's always an opportunity, but you have to make that opportunity. I'm a person who doesn't believe that sitting back and waiting is ever going to get you anything. You are the person who will drive your success, no one else. And you have to get out there and grab it. Other people will help you, but not without your asking for it, certainly, because everybody's out for their own best interests, whether they will admit it or not. We're humans, we have our own families, we have our own priorities. So you just got to get out there, get in front of people, make connections, make friends, rub some backs, and you'll get there.
I'm starting to see the genius of the panel selection. You guys did really well. I want to talk about a theme that's come up today that's, I think, really important to continue to grow as an engineering type craft. And I think, Cassie, I've never heard it put in a positive way, but F around and find out is exactly what we need to be doing. And I already alluded to this. Just grab a language and build a Hello World app and push it up to GitHub. It just shows that you're curious. It shows that you're risk-taking. It shows that you like to code. In your guys' experience, and Paul, you alluded to some of finding out, but can you talk about the importance of that if it is important? How important is it to explore and to go kind of outside of your lane to find new things to learn?
Since I started, I can keep going on that one. In my earliest career, I would go to hackathons and just learn a new language. And Blaine can attest to this. I would show up to like the game jams and everything, and we would just riff in a new language that night or that weekend and just build something new from scratch. And I got so good at grabbing something new and learning it really fast that it actually became a career at Microsoft, where I would just go to client sites and help them like deploy their software. And everybody thinks, oh, Microsoft, it's all .NET. No, oh my gosh. People code in the weirdest languages. You'd be amazed. And some companies have been around for 30, 40 years, and like, I have to learn COBOL? Like, what? Yeah, so it's an amazing skill, but definitely like explore, push yourself, and that goes back to the do something you're uncomfortable with, because every day I have to learn something new and do something new, and you really just have to force yourself into it until it becomes common to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think, at least for myself, talking about always trying to tinker and fiddle and always trying to build something new. Granted, I like scaffold Rails apps all the time. That's like all that I do, I feel like, generally. But I do work with plenty of other languages and frameworks, and I absolutely love getting the opportunity to mess around with them, because that's something that forces me to think a little outside my lane and outside my box. We work with a lot of different tools at Deere, and I have very much not a software engineering background, so everything kind of ends up being new to me in many different contexts. Like doing embedded engineering is something that I've never spent time doing until I worked at a really big company, and that's one of the things that we do. Building mobile apps isn't something that I'd ever really done before. It's just something that you don't touch in the financial world. And so, learning how to do that was just a matter of like, okay, well, I've got a couple of hours. I don't have anything in particular that I'm trying to do. Why not try to spin up something new, see what happens? If it works, great. If it doesn't work, then I can explore why. And hopefully I can share my findings with other people. I can watch EDA students try to build things in very strange ways or make very odd recommendations to them, and then they have to, and then follow them along on their journeys. It's just fun to kind of watch and grow, and you learn by tinkering. At least for me, that's one of the mechanisms through which I learn. It's very kinesthetic.
Yeah, I feel like I have two parts of this. So one, I started coding when I was about 10 years old. My junior high and high school actually had a program to teach me how to code, and then I went to school for it. So coding for me is almost like a second language, because I've just done it for so long. I just like picking up a new language. We picked up a new language every single year from my junior high to high school program. And then in college too, it was always a new language. So understanding those fundamentals in coding is really what will get you far, I think. And knowing that those things translate to different languages is just so important. And so when I think of picking up something new, especially in tech, it's like all these things that I've done before are going to impact how I learn now and make it a lot easier. So I know I was talking to one of the newer students at EDA, and I'm like, and one of the current students was giving them advice of like, really dive into your time now, because the more time you spend now at the beginning is going to make it easier in the future, right? And so I got really lucky that my beginning was when I was 10, but your beginning can be now, and the more time you spend at the beginning, your learning will just be easier going forward.
Can I just plus one that really quick? Something you said really resonated. Understanding your fundamentals really well. Oh my gosh. I tell every junior developer this. Don't rely on ChatGPT unless you understand your fundamentals. You really have to know what you're doing at a fundamental level before you start relying on something like that. But I plus one. Phenomenal.
Yeah, that leads into the next thing I wanted to talk about. When the students come through EDA, we have the luxury of knowing how fundamental a for loop is, or how fundamental a case switch is. And to you guys, it's all brand new, and you think maybe it's part of the framework. But no, it's this little Lego piece, DNA, that if you string enough for loops together, you can do absolutely anything in any language. And so where I work at FBS, we call it sharpening your tools. And so the idea is basically, can you be a little bit faster today? Can you soup up your editor with a code snippet that'll save you a little time? And you don't spend all day doing this, but you come to it weekly, whatever, more the better, where you sharpen your tools. I like Vim. I encourage people to use some of these old school tools because they're kind of built on that mentality, lean and mean, and the fundamental, that's all it is. And so for the panel, I ask you guys that, how do you sharpen your tools?
So I got a fun one. In our recent hackathon, I had one of our brightest engineers sit next to me, Ahmed. Absolutely love him. Guy's a genius. But he's robotics, not web stack. So I brought him to Fargo, and he's sitting next to me at my desk, and I had him do some data loading, ETL, extract, transform, load. And so he writes this library. 3 days later, he comes to me and he goes, "Is this good?" I looked at it, and I was like, "This is terrible." He's like, "What did I do wrong?" I'm like, "Everything." I was like, "Answer me this first." I was like, "How did you test this application?" And he goes, "Well, I tested the way I would use it." I was like, "Okay, what does that mean?" He said, "Well, I grabbed a file and I loaded the data through system." I'm like, "Okay, why is that wrong?" He's like, and he got mad at me. He's like, "How could that be wrong? I tested the way I was going to use it." I'm like, "No, fundamentally that's wrong because you tested it the way you would use it. You. What about the next developer?" And so the way I sharpen my tool is to help others sharpen theirs. So I made him sit next to me. I literally pulled his desk over and I said, "I'm going to throw away everything you just did, and I'm going to write everything you did in 3 days in the next 45 minutes, and you're going to watch. And you're going to ask questions as we go." So I would write a little bit. I would stop. "What should I do next, Ahmed?" "I don't know. I'm going to write a test, and I'm going to figure out how to make my code satisfy that test. And then I'm going to say, okay, well, it needs to be a service. Why does it need to be a service? Well, because of interface segregation. How do you split your codes to make it testable?" And so I just go through the fundamentals that are so important in software engineering, software as a craft, that it helps me reinforce my understanding as well as build theirs. And if you can teach this to someone else, your tools become even sharper, and it just continues to go. And so that is the way I sharpen my tools.
I love that. That's a yeah. I think we have as software engineers, like you kind of start with your foundational knowledge, and something that comes along with it is the tools that come with it. Like I still think of when I was first learning programming, I was using like the Atom text editor. If anybody knows what that, does anybody know what Atom is? Yeah. They got a woo? Really? Wow. All right. That's awesome. And so just as a simple, like it's a tool, and they had plugins, and you just kind of figured them out. Eventually you figured out what plugins work best for you, but it's a matter of tinkering and fiddling. So I know that my team at Deere, and then also my team at Harvest Profit prior to our acquisition, like we spent time thinking about the tools that we were going to use to write, but whether it was where we were going to host our software, how we were going to set up like a web application firewall or a CDN, or how we were going to handle all of our, what service we were going to use to handle our DNS. It was just a matter of tinkering, fiddling, and trying out all of these different tools and being open to exploring using new ones. So there were no dumb suggestions. There were things that definitely did not work. A lot of them were my suggestions, but the ones that did work have worked really well for us. We still use them today, and we continue to build on top of the tools that we've selected and the tools that we keep learning about. And so I'm excited to see what we use 5 years from now. I have no idea what that's. I don't think it's going to be Atom, but we'll find out.
Again, I am very much ask for help person. I ask for help all the time. And something I do with my team is we have weekly team meetings. Because I work at a consulting firm, everyone on my team that I manage works on a different project, right? So we're all doing different things for different clients all the time. And so when we're doing different things, we're all learning different skills. So a lot of times, instead of reinventing the wheel, I can even ask one of the junior devs on my team, like, "Hey, I saw you did this 3 months ago. How did you do it? Help me do it. Even though I'm your manager, like I still need help." And obviously, if they hear the same in those meetings, I'm there to help them too. So I ask for help all the time, and I think learning from each other is one of the ways I sharpen my tools.
Well, we're down to our last minute, and so I just want to, I'm sure I speak for the group when I say approach us if you have questions. I really like the way Paul put it. At a certain point in your career, you start to level down, and you come back down that ladder, and you try to help others up. And so that's why we're here and others like us, so please come and talk to us. I'll also steal something from your Microsoft days. Let's do 3 words, and to summarize how to basically, how did we word it? A technically craft something career. And I think what it takes is passion, curiosity, and effort. I'll pass to anybody else. Do you have 3 words for us?
Definitely passion, tenacity, and oh my goodness, what's a good word for like just do it? Like it's phrased, just do it.
Agency, another
Agency.
tip to Langston.
Yeah. I would say for me, empathy, curiosity, and maybe like I'm almost tempted to say failure. Just not being afraid of it.
Yeah, I can only think of 2. I feel like 2's been my word the whole time. But effort and openness.
Wonderful. Well, let's hear it for our panelists. Thank you so much for your wisdom.